corrected Exhibit 31?
Yes, I would offer Exhibit 31 again.
Okay. This is when he hates it when we do anything like that without her being in the room. But anyway, my understanding is with the changes, there's no objection to 31, is that right? Okay, 31 is admitted. Proceed.
May we publish it on it?
Yes.
All right, looking at Exhibit 31, Monet, can you just kind of, we can just scroll through the pages. Can you just explain to the jury what this is?
It's just like data information about my phone, my cell phone.
All right, and how about the next page, please? All right, and can you just, thank you. And can you tell us what this text message is?
This was the first message that Sarah had sent to me while we were talking on the phone.
And what's the date and time on it?
June 4th, 2020 at 8:46 a.m.
And you said you were talking to Sarah on the phone at the time she sent it to you?
Yes.
And how many videos did she send you that day?
2 videos, I believe.
All right. If we can either scroll down or go to the next page. And did you watch the videos, Renee?
Yes.
And looking at the second screen, what is that?
It's my brother laying on the ground.
Is that the second video that she sent you?
Yeah.
If we could go to the next page, please. And is that the 2 videos together?
Yes.
All right. How about the next page? And then if you could zoom in on that, please. And what was this message?
This was just her showing me like the timestamp, like so I could know around like what time the incident happened that she sent to me. So a screenshot of the timestamp of the video.
Okay, and it indicates Parkland, South End, March 3rd, 11:21 p.m. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And is that something that was a screenshot she sent you from her phone? Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. We could go to the next page. And is that the same information, only so it shows March 3rd, 11:22 p.m., Tacoma, South End. Is that the second video that she sent you?
Yes.
I think that's the last page. Okay. Thank you. Monet, what did you do when you received this call and these messages and these videos from Sarah McDowell?
I had called my lawyer, James Bible, and I told him about there's a video out.
And did you later make arrangements that day for Ms. McDowell to meet with Mr. Bible or to provide information?
Yes.
And did you actually send the video to your family lawyer?
No, he wouldn't take it.
And so did you meet with Ms. McDowell later that day?
Yes.
And where did you meet with Ms. McDowell?
I was at someone's residence that she was staying at, I believe.
And who all was present when you met with Ms. McDowell?
It was myself. There was 2 people from Tacoma Action Collective, and James Bible and his videographer, Neftali.
And what was the purpose of meeting with Ms. McDowell on June 4th?
Mr. Bible just wanted to document his first time seeing the video and asking her questions regarding what happened that night in the video.
And you said there was a videographer there. Was there a recording made of the speaking with Ms. McDowell?
Yes, there was.
And you said it was outside of a residence, and you described the people that were there. Did you later come to know that there was another individual who was present?
Yeah.
That your brother died?
Yeah.
And who was that?
Keon Lowry was there as well at the house, inside of the house.
And was Mr. Lowry present when Ms. McDowell was interviewed by Mr. Bible?
No, she wasn't, or he wasn't.
And at that point, Monet, did you have any information really about what had happened from the police department? Meaning, did you have any police reports the autopsy report, anything like that?
No, like I said, we had only received the medical examiner's report earlier that day.
And had you received any information from the police department, other than what you might have seen in the media?
No.
About what had happened to your brother?
No.
And was there any conversation or discussion with Ms. McDowell about the facts of the case that wasn't put on, wasn't recorded by the videographer?
No.
Overruled, the answer stands.
And after the interview with Ms. McDowell, was there another interview that same day?
Yes.
And who was interviewed then by Mr. Bible? Your Honor, I think it goes to the issues that have already been raised with respect to these witnesses, just laying the foundation for it.
I'll allow the question.
Was there another interview?
Yes, there was.
And who was that with?
Keon Lowry,
And where was he interviewed?
outside of the residence.
And was that also done with a videographer?
Yes.
And did you have any, were those same people that you just described present during that interview as well?
Besides Sarah, yes.
And where was Ms. McDowell when Mr. Lowry was interviewed?
She went back inside the house to tend to her kids.
Now, we just looked at Exhibit 31, which was some screenshots from your phone. At some point, did you provide information from your phone for examination by the defense?
Yes.
And what did you do that in response to?
A subpoena that I was given.
And who did you receive the subpoena from?
Mark Conrad.
And did you provide all the information that you had on your phone related to this communication with Ms. McDowell on the video?
Yes.
If I could have just a moment, Your Honor. That's all I have for now. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, thank you, Monet.
Mr. Burchett?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, good afternoon, and I'm truly sorry for your loss, but I do have a few questions for you.
Okay.
Back, you have 7 children currently, is that correct?
Yes.
And at the time of your brother's death, you had 5 kids.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
What were the age ranges of those 5 children?
Between 10 and about 8 months old.
Okay. And it sounds as if your brother was of some assistance to you during that period of time.
Yes.
But your brother was a meth addict, correct?
Yes.
He'd been a meth addict since 20 or 21, correct?
Yes.
And it came a point in time in the latter part of December 2019 to the early part of January 2020, where he was not welcome in your home any longer, correct?
No.
He wasn't? He was welcome?
Yes.
He was welcome in your home,
Yes.
even with these little babies in your home,
Yes.
and his meth addiction was fine with you.
No.
So the meth addiction wasn't fine,
No.
and he needed to go someplace else, correct?
No.
Well, you said that he went to a clean and sober house to live.
Yes.
And that was for purposes of getting help for his addiction, correct?
Yes.
And that was more than you had the ability to do at that point in time.
Yes.
Because you're working, correct?
Yes.
And you're raising 5 young children.
Yes.
And so that was, he was tasked with trying to get off of methamphetamine.
More than just that.
Well, he had some mental health issues as well.
Yes.
So mental health and the methamphetamine.
Yes.
And during this period of time, actually for a year or so before that point in time, you were transporting him to medical appointments,
Yes.
mental health appointments.
Yes.
He had treatment appointments in Pierce County Alliance, correct?
Yes.
And he was court-ordered to do these treatments, correct?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay. Are you aware of his court-ordered requirements during this period of time?
The only court order requirement that I was aware of was him staying clean and sober and not getting into any other interactions with law enforcement.
All right, and then you also said that just recently, not recently, but Ms. McDowell and Mr. Lowry were interviewed at some point in time in, I guess, roughly June of 2020.
Yes.
Were you present during either of those interviews?
Yes.
So you sat in on both of the interviews?
Yes.
Excuse me. Ma'am, thank you. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Hartman.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Monet, just a few questions for you this afternoon. You and your brother, you guys were close, right?
Yes.
You've been close pretty much all your life, right?
Yes.
And he actually told you at some point that his meth addiction started when he was 18 or 19, right?
It was more in his 20s, about 21.
You gave some interviews some time ago with Kent Lou and Patty Eakes. Do you remember that?
It was some time ago, but I'll try to remember.
Okay, I think there was also investigator Heitzman present. Do you remember that?
Somewhat, yeah.
Do you remember saying that actually his drug problem started when he was 18 or 19?
No.
If I showed you that, would that refresh your recollection? Potentially, as having said that.
Maybe. Sure.
Okay, you understand that those interviews and when you give an interview to lawyers, that those things are recorded, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Regardless, no matter what, he was early, either in his late teens or early 20s, that he developed a drug problem.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And you knew, at least in some ways, when he was under the influence, correct?
Somewhat, yeah.
And you remember describing to detectives or to the lawyers that your brother would get kind of skinny and sweaty and be agitated and unable to sit still when he was high?
Not so much agitated. The one time that I remember when he was sweaty was at my son's second birthday party at like the end of July, and we were in a hot apartment, and he was sweaty, but I don't believe it was due to his drug use. I believe it was because he was hot, not because he was sweaty.
Okay, so you didn't think he was high at that time?
No, I knew he was high. He actually told us and was like crying about it at the birthday party that he was high.
So do you associate the sweatiness with the drug use or just that it was hot?
I believe that it was because it was hot.
Okay, so I may have misunderstood what you said. Previously, I thought you had told the investigator and the attorneys that when he was high that he would get sweaty.
Yeah, that's not what I meant.
Okay, fair enough. You also said that he obviously dealt with some mental health challenges, correct?
Yes.
And that included things like schizophrenia, paranoia, that type of thing.
Yes.
And you and your family, at times, had to help him through an instance of that paranoia, correct?
Yes.
And he shared with you some of those paranoias.
Yes.
And one of them was something about him talking to his foot.
No.
Okay. A bullet in his foot?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sometimes Manny would hear stuff or ask me if I heard something or if I saw something. And I would just say, Manny, there's nothing there, and I don't hear what you're hearing. Like, you are experiencing something else. We need to get you to a doctor and get you some help.
Right. And you felt that that was a symptom of a mental health issue?
Yes.
The hearing voices and having these conversations and that sort of thing?
Yes.
And was that something that you noticed years ago, or is that something that just manifested more recently?
It had manifested more recently is when I had noticed it. And oftentimes it was when he was sober, not when he was high.
Okay. But you noticed at times if he was high, that could be worse, potentially?
When he was high, he was very, very down, very depressed, very emotional, would cry a lot. And in a way, I feel like maybe he was embarrassed that he had to resort to using drugs to suppress what he was going through emotionally.
At some point, though, you became aware of some run-ins that he had with police, correct?
Yes.
All right, so in 2015, did you hear about that incident?
No.
Okay, so you were never made aware of an instance where he had gotten in a confrontation and had to be not only handcuffed, but also hobbled by police?
No.
Oh, he never told you about
And I'm gonna object, she already said she doesn't know about it.
it? Cross-examination.
Overruled. Answer stands.
What about in 2019?
Yes.
Okay, and at that time you learned that he had gone to a KFC/A&W restaurant, correct?
Yes.
And that he had gotten into some kind of altercation with the folks there at the restaurant, correct?
Yes.
And that ultimately he had taken off his clothes and run down the street, correct?
Yes.
And had, again, gotten into it with police, was tased, arrested, that sort of thing?
No.
You weren't aware of that?
That's not what I saw. I watched a video. The whole video was uploaded. So
Okay, so you knew of the incident
yes.
and you watched the video?
Yes.
Okay. And Manny actually told you that the people who worked at the restaurant had attacked him,
No,
correct?
I'm gonna object, this is hearsay,
It's not for the truth of the matter.
relevance.
It seems to me the state's put in controversy her understanding of his mental health and drug concerns. So I'll permit this.
You can answer the question.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
I'm going to read it back.
And Manny actually told you that the people who worked at the restaurant had attacked him, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in response to, at least to some degree, to that 2019 incident, you and your family got together and had you confronted Manny about some of these issues, correct?
Yes.
You had an intervention of some variety?
I wouldn't call it an intervention. No.
Okay. But were there family members present?
My mom and my brother.
Okay. And what did you guys, you said confrontation, so what was the confrontation?
I don't think it was a confrontation. It was just more of us getting together because I called on my family because I was concerned that what everyone thought Manny had was an addiction problem or he was a meth user. I felt like it was more of a mental health issue and Manny was suppressing his trauma that I had learned about recently with meth use, drug use.
Okay. And you did tell him, either at that meeting, if you want to call it that, or around that time, that if he didn't stop living his life like this, that he was going to die, correct?
Yes.
And that was about the time, that was like roughly January of 2020 when he responded positively, is that fair to say?
Responded positively.
Well, the family meeting, you told him, you know, you can't live this way, you're going to end up dead.
Yeah.
I know your mom was upset by what had happened in the A&W incident.
Yeah, that was in September though. You said January, so I was just trying to.
Okay, and I apologize.
It's okay.
All right, so the family has the meeting around January 2020.
No.
No, you're right. I apologize. Around January 2020, Manny starts to get things right. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And that was when he started going to church.
Yes.
Right? And he was going every day almost.
Pretty much, yeah.
And he was playing the drums.
Yeah.
And he was in the clean and sober house.
Mm-hmm.
And he was interacting with people.
Mm-hmm.
Correct? And you could tell with Manny because one of the things, and I don't know if you answered this exactly the way I phrased it, but Manny would get skinnier when he was using. Is that accurate?
He would lose weight, yeah.
Okay, lose weight. And when he was not using, he would put on weight.
Yes.
Is that fair? And in the early months of 2020, he started to put on some weight, correct? And look healthier?
Yeah. Well, he had put on weight since he got out of jail
Okay.
in September or October.
That was a sign to you that he wasn't using.
Yeah.
Just shifting gears a little bit, you mentioned the snacks that Manny liked, correct?
Yes.
You mentioned water. At some point, were you made aware of a suggestion that there was a large water bottle that he was carrying on the night that he died?
No.
Okay. You don't remember anything about that?
I know they were talking about like a powdery substance, but that turned out to be donuts.
Okay, so you don't remember thinking anything about the water bottle?
No.
And you said Manny had many kids, but none biological. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. And were any of them adopted?
No, not adopted. His girlfriend at the time, she was pregnant, but it was by somebody else. But he had chose to raise the child as his own and treat her as such. And our family treated her as such and still do treat her as such.
Okay. And that's Alexis?
Yeah.
And she lives over in Spokane?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nothing further. Thank you.
Mr. Conrad.
Okay.
I don't have a whole lot of questions for you, just a couple things. So, you obviously talked about some of the mental health issues that your brother struggled with. And based on our prior conversations, you indicated that when his depression would get worse or he would have certain hallucinations, that's when you would see him using drugs. Is that fair?
No.
Okay. So you didn't, previously when we talked during the interview, you didn't say that to me?
I don't remember saying that. No, not in that context, no.
Okay. So you didn't see his drug use increase or get worse when he was more depressed or having more hallucinations?
No.
Do you think it would help if I showed you maybe the transcript from our interview?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I have this mark real quick? What's our last defense exhibit? So why don't I do it this way? So, Monet, you remember we did an interview September 29th, 2023.
Mm-hmm.
I know you had a lot going on then, but
Yeah.
so one of the things I asked you is about your concern of Manny overdosing. And
Well, I would object that this is not proper. If he wants to try to refresh her memory, he can. She's indicated she doesn't remember. I think he needs to show her the transcript and let her answer as opposed to just reading from the transcript.
I agree.
okay, well, I'll just have more.
Okay, I need a moment.
Tell me what page you're on.
This is page 13,
And what line?
lines 10 through 13. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Winfrey. Okay, I approach.
Yes, what's the exhibit number?
It's exhibit 2709. You look at page 13, it's lines 5 through 9. your recollection?
Yeah, but
She said it refreshes her recollection. What's your next question?
yeah.
So, do you remember indicating that when his depression got worse, or when he started to have certain hallucinations or other things going on mentally, that's when I noticed he would use and when he would be distant from me?
That was prior to him living with me a lot. So that was prior to 2013. But yes.
Okay. And do you remember in December of 2019 contacting his counselor at Pierce County Alliance?
I don't think it was his, I don't remember if it was his counselor or it was his lawyer, but I do remember contacting someone with the court.
Do you remember indicating to them at that point that he had relapsed then and you weren't going to allow him into your house anymore?
No, but I remember telling them that he couldn't live with me anymore.
Okay. And that was because he was using?
Because he had relapsed, yes.
And then the last thing I want to ask you about is, obviously you're aware of this incident that happened with him in September of 2019 at the A&W.
Yes.
And then you're aware he was released, and one of the conditions of his release was that he not use any illegal drugs, correct?
That I wasn't aware of, only because I didn't know if he was going to drug court or mental health court, and I didn't fully know like everything until after he wasn't living with me anymore.
Okay. Did you come to find that information out at some
Yes,
point?
I did.
Okay. So you came to find out that one of the conditions of his release was that he's not supposed to be using any illegal drugs?
Yes.
Okay. And that was a condition of release that was in place in March of 2020 as well, right?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Do you remember if he was still going to court for that incident?
I don't think he was. I think it had gotten dropped, or I thought it had gotten dropped.
Okay. What information do you have based on that?
Well, it was just from like conversations that I had with his lawyer at the time, but it was after he had passed away when I had talked to her about it.
Okay. So you weren't aware that he had a trial date on that case coming up in March?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No.
And counsel just asked you about your concerns that if, some concerns that you had for Manny, that if he continued with the life that he was leading, that he might die. Remember that?
Yes.
And that was something that you had indicated in 2019, is that right?
Yeah, based off the choices that he was making with his life, I was concerned that by him using drugs, buying drugs, being around other drug users, he could potentially be harmed by one of them, just because of like the situations that he was putting himself in.
But that's something that you also expressed back in March of 2016 as well, right? Long before that.
Yeah.
And it's something that you guys have been concerned about for your brother for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Redirect.
Monet, why did you let Manny come to your house and be around your children if you knew that he had a meth addiction?
Well, wasn't concerned about his behavior when he was, if he was high or if he had a meth addiction, because of the way that he acted when he was around us. It wasn't, he didn't scare my children, he didn't scare me, he didn't act violent towards any of us ever. And he was actually a joy to be around, so there was no reason for me to not have him around.
And was he always using when you were around him?
No.
Now, you talked about his mental health and taking him to his treatment. Do you know at the time of his death, was he taking medication for his mental health issues?
Yes, he was.
And had you seen any difference in his behavior as a result of that?
Actually, yeah, he was a lot more happier. He talked more about not such lighter things, but just about having a better positive outlook on life.
And how was his demeanor or his attitude in March of 2020 or late February of 2020 in terms of his happiness or depression?
He was happy. He was normal. He was like my typical funny brother who makes me laugh and makes the kids laugh, and it wasn't a concern of anything then.
And you were asked some questions on cross-examination about him playing drums.
Mhm.
What was Manny's interest in music?
Well, he wasn't only like a drum player, like he was self-taught, so he like could play by ear. So he could like he played the keyboard a lot, the piano. He like would make like different types of beats on different types of beat machines. But he was really, really good at the drums. He played since we were kids. We used to go to church and we all had to play an instrument. So.
And you were asked about whether he started going to church in early 2020. Had Manny gone to church before that or had an interest in religion?
Yeah, we grew up in the church. My dad was a pastor, so we went to church for all of our lives. Manny more so than myself and my brother as we got older, for sure, but we grew up knowing God, so.
You were asked some questions about the A&W incident, and did Manny have any injuries as a result of that
Yes.
incident?
Yeah.
What injuries did you see on him?
I mean, his face was unrecognizable. He also had his tooth chipped. He had a bunch of like stitches in his head and his eyes. His face was swollen. His head was swollen. He was beat up pretty bad.
And when you were asked about telling Manny that if he didn't stop living like this, he was going to die, what did you mean by that?
I honestly thought that he, just by the choices that he was making in life, like I told the defense earlier, him using drugs or getting beat up the way that he got beat up by those employees, like he could have died just from those injuries. He was putting himself in harmful situations to get hurt. I mean, people that use drugs they can get killed in a drug deal gone wrong. It's dangerous, and I didn't want that for my brother.
Were you expressing that you were concerned that he would overdose?
Never.
Pick it up just a moment now. Just to clarify one thing, you talked about the injuries that Manny had as a result of the A&W incident. Do you know who caused those injuries?
The employees that beat him up.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Burtson?
Yes, thank you. Ma'am, this incident at the BMW, the information that you received about how Manny became injured was from who?
The workers.
The workers told you that they beat him up?
Yes.
Okay. And were you aware that Manny was tased by police officers?
Yes.
All right, and realize that he was charging the police officers when they tased him the first time?
Yes, I saw the video.
Okay, and then he got up and charged the officers again, and they tased him?
Yes.
And when you tase somebody, they lose the ability to function, correct?
Yes.
All right, and so the worker said that they beat up Manny.
Yes.
And that was their fault that he was hurt. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And also, you said you were not concerned about Manny's methamphetamine use, but you were concerned that he might die
Yes.
because of being around drug dealers
Yes.
and other drug users.
Mhm.
All right. Well, how frequently was Manny using methamphetamine during the period of time that you were around him?
That I'm not aware of, but I know that as a drug addict, if you buy drugs, you buy them from dangerous people. So, in the event that whoever you're buying the drugs from, whatever transaction happens, you're putting your life at risk.
Okay? And you were not concerned that he could overdose from buying drugs from people that deal drugs?
No, I wasn't concerned about a meth overdose.
Not whatsoever.
No.
All right. And you were concerned about him just overall health-wise, correct?
No overall health concerns,
Well,
no.
he had mental health issues,
Yeah.
correct?
Mhm.
He was a methamphetamine addict, correct?
Mhm.
All right. He had a bad heart, correct?
No,
He did not have a bad heart.
not that I'm aware
You're
of.
not aware of him having a bad heart.
No.
Okay. Did you ever take him to the doctor to have his heart checked?
No.
Okay. And so you were only aware of his mental health issues
Yes.
and his methamphetamine use.
Yes.
That's the only two issues you're aware of.
Yes.
Great. That's all I have.
I don't have anything.
Just really briefly. So Monet, you and I previously talked about this note from March of 2016. Remember that in our interview?
What note?
So it's a note that indicates that you were concerned about Manny because he had been using and he was up all night. And you heard him say that his color wasn't called in today, but he was going to go in and tell the truth and hope for the best. Remember that?
Oh, like for court.
Yeah.
That was like 7 years ago, so I can't say that I fully remember, but
Okay. But you indicated there that you thought he'd been using because he had been up all weekend. Is that right?
yes.
Okay. So obviously that was something that indicated to you that he had been using because he just would stay up all the time.
Well, I know if a person is using meth, they're not going to be sleeping all weekend. I know that meth users usually have a hard time sleeping or don't sleep.
Okay. And then one of the other things I wanted to ask about, and fast forward to December 2019, you knew that he had relapsed then, is that right?
Yes.
And then it seems like after the relapse, he starts to get back on a good path, is that right?
Yes.
And it doesn't seem like you guys had any indication that he had been using anything, any drugs, leading up to March of 2020. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So there was nothing that indicated to you that he had relapsed or been using up until March 3rd of 2020.
No.
Okay. Do you think that's something you would have noticed?
Maybe like if he was living with me and I was like physically like around him 24/7, watching his every move. But when he moved out, you know, he would come, he'd watch the kids for me for a couple of hours. On Sundays, he would come and watch football, but he would eat. So I wasn't able to notice like those behaviors in him.
But the times that you did interact with him, you didn't have any concerns?
No.
Okay. And you know that the Clean and Sober house that he was at was also doing UAs for
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
He
And
wasn't having any issues with those either, right?
I hadn't been told, and I would have thought I would have been told if he was, or maybe if he wanted to tell me, but I hadn't been told.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Ms. Hicks?
Nothing more, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Carter-Mixon, you're excused. Thank you very much. We're now about 7 minutes till 4 o'clock. You got a 7-minute window.
We could start it with, but can I help? Can I help?
You don't have a 7-minute witness. That's,
It won't be done in 7 minutes.
gotcha, gotcha. So we'll break for the day. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll break it till tomorrow morning, same time. I'm sorry, not tomorrow morning, because tomorrow's Friday, but Monday morning, same time. Please do not discuss the case among yourselves with anyone else.